got sort of like a critical mass going on right here. So we might as well just get started, and if other people join, they'll join. So I'll do a brief intro, and then I'll let you complete the intro. Um, Many people. So first, I'll just talk very briefly about Hay Counsel. It's a community of solo, small firm, boutique lawyers, all kind of leveraging the power of numbers here, helping each other build their practices, learn a little bit, and collaborate, and basically leveraging all of our different practice areas in one big Slack group and a platform. And we're kind of figuring it out as we go. But I try to host knowledgeable people in kind of different areas. Sometimes we have subject matter experts, sometimes we have service providers come on and just talk about things that they're experts in, and whoever joins, we just turn into a good conversation. So there's oftentimes not too much structure around these, but it's just a way for people to get to know you, learn a little bit from you, and then kind of give you the floor and talk a little bit about what's going on in your life. So thanks for joining us. I think a lot of people know who you are because you are, I guess the legal space on LinkedIn is pretty small. And I've definitely been watching you as you've been growing how to contract as a business. And as one fellow lawyer slash entrepreneur, those lines tend to blur and then get very complicated. So I admire you from a distance. We haven't met, for those who are joining. Like Laura and I have never met before, but I've definitely been reading your stuff, watching you grow the business. And so part of what I want to talk about is how that came to be. But yeah, thanks for joining us. I maybe I'll pass the floor to you for like a very brief, like Laura's version of Laura, and
Yeah.
I'll start hitting you with questions.
Yeah. And I'm not a big believer in long intros. I've had people who say, well, I went to high school in blah, 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 and I'm like, no, a little sooner. So the quick version is I'm Laura Frederick. I was a commercial contracts lawyer for 25 plus years and opened my own firm in 2019 and started doing a little bit of posting to promote it on LinkedIn, even though I'd never done anything public, almost never spoke, never did any bar activities. It was kids and work. And then that just kind of took off. So then I turned it into a paid community, then into courses and into a conference, annual conference. And it's kind of evolved. It's coming on 5 years since I first started posting. Because I have the date, August 3rd is the first date that I posted a contract tip on LinkedIn on August 3rd, 2020. So fast forward to today, I closed my legal practice about a year and a half ago. I just do this full time, and it's the greatest life ever because I just get to totally nerd out all 24/7. And it's also nice because I'm just helping people. Like how cool is that? You just get to do for your job just to kind of help people, and you don't have all the stress of, you know, counterparties and deadlines and things like that.
Totally. I did see that post that you were kind of celebrating the 5 year anniversary of your first post. So congrats on that. So I'll start with the questions, and some of it will relate to how to contract and how it started. So let's start there. When did you kind of come up with this idea um, of providing information around contracts, and sort of like t walk us through how that morphed into how to contract as a business?
Yeah. So I'd been thinking in the spring, I'd been following, there's a guy named Jay Harrington, people might know, who is a thought leader on being a thought leader in the legal world. And he's very into legal development, legal marketing, does coaching, does a lot of stuff. So I'd been following his stuff for a while because I had started my own law practice, my own solo practice in January 2019. I quit. I was at Tesla at the time. Well, I formally like asked if I could be included in a layoff, which I was allowed to do. So I left and then with no plan. I'm the sole parent, no financial income support from anybody else, with four kids in high school and middle school, not a ton of money in the bank. So this was definitely a big gamble on me. But I thought, you know what? It's none of my corporate jobs were quite doing it. And it was always something lacking and I couldn't figure out what it was. But it was really that freedom to control my destiny. And so I decided to take the plunge. Uh, and it did fine. I got some clients pretty soon because I'm very experienced. I'm well connected. I've been working for 25 years. So it was a little easier, I think, for me than a lot of folks who might not have that same breadth of network. So started that. And then I was like, okay, well, let's get going with this. I'm an overachiever by nature. So I'm like, okay, how do I succeed? And I started out that first year really doing a lot of overflow stuff for other people. My passion's always been commercial contracts and tech transactions. And I'd worked for about 14 years in the energy space, so I knew a lot of people there, and I got a lot of work from them and started getting my own clients. And then about a year and a half into it, or a year into it, the pandemic hit. And I was like, okay, well, now I got to market in the pandemic.
Mhm.
And I was reading Jay's posts on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, thought leadership. You got to show people you know what you're talking about, not just tell them. So I had been thinking about it, and then I saw somebody said do a 30-day challenge, like post every day on LinkedIn for 30 days. Because I probably posted 10 to 15 times a year at most, all of the 15 years I'd been on LinkedIn. And I was like, okay, well, what can I post about? What am I going to say? Like, hi, everybody, have a nice day. Like, I had no idea. I don't do any social media other than LinkedIn. So I came up with the idea that I had all these negotiations with people on the other side who I wanted to say, I call it the hey, idiot posts. Like, hey, idiot, this is how it works. Like, this is how contracts are. And so started writing those kinds of posts, but very nicely, of course, like, so this isn't how it is. And as soon as I started, I want to say within a couple posts, like people were weighing in and just sharing their experiences and like, yeah, that's totally right. But also think about these five things. And then other people weighing in. And everybody was just having this great kind of water cooler conversation. And it just snowballed. And people couldn't get enough of it. I think we're all starved for that connection in the pandemic and something fun. And I think there's a lot more contract nerdy people than anybody knew before this whole process of the pandemic and connecting that way started. So, yeah, that was kind of how I ended up there. And then it just ballooned. And I took, like, people are like, oh, give me a PDF with your tips. And I thought, well, that's going to be a pain to kind of try and distribute by PDF. I can do self-publishing on Amazon. I'll do that. So that's how the book started. And then people are like, I want your tips all the time. Can you put them in an online community? I'll pay you. I was like, okay. So
Yeah.
anyway, it just kind of ballooned from there. And I just always kind of paid attention to what people wanted and tried to give them that.
What do you think it was about either like the way you were posting or the frequency that you were posting or just maybe the content that kind of struck a nerve? Because I think the 30-day challenge is interesting because it does force you every day sit down and come up with something. And I think it's manageable because it's only 30 days, right? You're like, okay, I'll do it for 30 days and we'll see where I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think really kind of like caught on? Because people do try this and then I think kind of back out. I'm one of them. I'm pretty inconsistent on LinkedIn. So I'm curious if you kind of had any insights from those early days.
Yeah, and I come from kind of a guilt place. Like I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school my whole life. So guilt is sort of my inner fuel. I try not to feel guilty, but it's still there. It's just part of me. And so whenever I was like, well, I told people I would and then I have to do it. So that was a motivation. And also, it was just fun. I think that's part of what made me different from other people who had posted about contracts is, I mean, I really enjoy it. I have so much fun with it. I think they're so much fun. I really have a lot of passion for what I do. And after 5 years of talking about it, I love contracts even more than when I started. Like it's just I could do this every day for the rest of my life. So I think that passion, and then I'm nice. Like there had been a lot of people posting that were kind of rude and insulting and took the approach of if you didn't know it, you're stupid. If you didn't know this stuff, like, let me tell you how it is. And I just don't believe that. I believe that we're all on a learning journey for different subjects, and some of us are further along in one than the other. And so even people who maybe didn't quite get it and they'd share something, I would never say, well, that's wrong. You know, I would
Hmm.
always say, thanks for sharing. I appreciate you adding your comment, that kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
think creating an inclusive community, and then honestly, I deleted people who left nasty comments and I blocked some people who left nasty comments because I was like, my post, my rules. I encourage debate. I encourage different opinions. I love it when people tell me I disagree with you completely. It's really this, because that conversation helps all the readers to see, especially two smart lawyers who have skills and have completely different views, which I think is fantastic. But it always has to be from a place of respect.
Yeah, 100%. And we're all like infinitely stupid in so many categories in life. So like if we were always called out for when we were wrong, I like that approach to be sort of inclusive and more educational than like critical, although those two things do mix a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
so cool. That's awesome. And then I guess I imagine like after a certain period of time, you're building your law firm and you're posting these contract tips, and the tips are leading to more eyeballs, and that probably led to more business through the firm. Did you see a big uptake in or uptick in firm business?
A huge uptick. So before, up for the first 9 months or so, I'd operated my firm for about 9 months before, or was it 9 months? I guess it was a year and a half. No, it was a year and a half, 18 months of operating my firm before I started posting. And I would say 95% of my clients up to that point were people I knew or people I knew who recommended me to someone they knew, just kind of word of mouth, either direct working relationship or word of mouth from somebody with a direct working relationship. As soon as I started posting, I started seeing a huge uptick. I ended up bringing on 4 contractors to try and handle all of the workflow that I was getting because I was like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I gotta take advantage. I gotta bring this in.
Uh,
And in the next 18 months following me starting to post, because I tracked where I heard people, it flipped. 95% of my new business was from LinkedIn and 5% was referral. And that
wow.
wasn't because my referrals were terrible. Referrals were still good, but I just had so much work because I think there's a woman from Link or who is a sales lead on LinkedIn. Her name's Samantha McKenna, and she has a hashtag called Sam Sales or Sam Sells. Anyway, but she was a big salesperson. She's a salesperson by nature, but worked at LinkedIn, supported the legal community at LinkedIn, so she knows a lot about lawyers. She has a mantra that's called "Show me you know me," and it's really about understanding the people that you're talking to and what motivates them, and then showing that this is what I got from Jay Harrington, which was showing people that you understand not just the academic subject matter, but where they are in their work. A lot of these, and I did 14 years in house, so I got the struggle and I could
Mhm.
talk about it. And I talked about contracts not as an academic, not as a law firm whose, the 7 types of conditional language are. It was more like, okay, this totally sucks. There's no good answer. Here's the least bad answer if it was me. And that's what people really wanted, that real stuff. And I think it helps too, because I came from a really sophisticated background that I'd done. I'd been in big law, I'd worked at companies like Tesla, I handled billion-dollar contracts on my own at Tesla. I know my stuff, but I talk like a regular person. So I think the combination of those two things really helped build credibility. Um, and then I'm
Yeah.
also like, I want to help people. Like I'm a service person by nature. So
Mhm.
it's all those things combined, I think just kind of fed this trajectory.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard the show me you know me thing, but that is kind of the heart of making something resonate. It is if you can kind of show the reader that you understand their pain or that you're speaking their same language, they will want to read on versus you could lose them pretty quickly in the first 2 or 3 sentences if you don't do that. And I think, we're all experts in different areas. It's how we communicate that expertise to make it resonate, that's kind of like the special sauce, which is why not everyone trends on social media and only a few people do. That's cool. The Show Me You Know Me thing I haven't heard, but I like that.
Yeah, check out her stuff. She's so good. And I've learned so much. I learned a lot over the years just as an entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about anything. And so like I'd pick a subject, it'd be for a little while, so it was sales, and I learned that. And then it was marketing. I learned that for a while. Then it was graphic design and video, so I pick a subject and I follow everybody on it and try and pick up as much as I can.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a good tip because I think as lawyers, we're focused so much on being a lawyer. But when we're business owners, which is what all of us are, now we have all these other things that we need to get at least competent in so that we can run a business. So that's great. Great tip. Thank you.
Sure.
I will implement it. Um, so okay, so you're getting tons of business and you're sort of growing this following. And
hmm
at what point did you realize I need to choose a direction? Because like you said before, you're like, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm getting all this new business. Of course, I need to monetize it, but that isn't always the right choice. There's a certain element of you need to focus on something um, to become sort of like to take it to the next level. And if you have two different things going on, you may not go in either direction very far. So I guess
Yeah.
when did you come to that realization that you wanted to take how to contract to the next level? And was it hard to pull away from the firm as it was also growing?
Yeah. For me, it was, I'm always been this way with my career and even now with how to contract, which is I follow my heart. Which work was I pulling to do? Which work did I resist? And I kind of say, oh, well, look at that. I love doing this. I don't like doing that. The problem for me was I really loved both. They fed a different part of me. The work, because my specialty is very expensive renewable energy projects and equipment. So if you need to buy $300 million of inverters, I'm the one for you. And so that work tends to be project based and sporadic, although with some steady stuff. And so what I ended up doing was I shifted to more of that work. That was more, it was a higher hourly rate as well because I could earn that premium. And that allowed me to keep doing the how to contract stuff so that I'd have peaks of this high billable rate work. And then I'd have valleys when the deal signed before the next one kind of got churning, a little bit like M&A kind of deals. And so I'd work more on how to contract in between. And ultimately, 2023 was the year where they were both going gangbusters like crazy. And I was just really and I was dealing with a whole bunch of family health things, and it was just a really hard year. It was too much. And I
Mhm.
got to that point, I was like, either I have to figure out a path forward. And I realized I had been afraid to close the law firm and stop doing that work because it pays really well per hour and it's something I can do well and I enjoy doing. But I realized there's a freedom that comes with this how to contract work where if I stop practicing law tomorrow, I'm broke. If
Mhm.
I stop doing that tomorrow with how to contract, it continues. So I kind of decided I'm 57. So I was like, that's my kind of ramp. I don't know if I'll retire when I'll retire, but what if that happens? Because people kind of sometimes don't have a choice and have to retire. I was like, well, I'll be ready for that because this is something that I can turn over in a lot of ways to other people to run. Whereas a law firm, it's much harder to just kind of be absent suddenly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to quickly, because we have somewhat of a limited time, and I want to give people the option to jump in and ask questions. So I got a couple more kind of switching gears from the entrepreneur side to the contracting side. So I think all of us, I won't speak for everyone because I can't see all the little name tiles, but a lot of us contracting is a piece of what we do. I do regulatory and commercial work. And I was a self-taught commercial attorney. I never was part of a law firm, and I was mostly like in-house regulatory counsel that then had to take over partnerships and learn how to contract. So I had to learn. I bought books. I learned trial by fire. I had some mentors in-house who taught me certain things and what resources to use. But I'm curious, like that was a long time ago, I guess, when I started to pick up my contracting chops. By no means am I an expert, but I'm curious what like if somebody was in my position now where they're like, okay, I want to get the reps up, I want to start learning the ins and outs of contracting. Maybe they're transitioning from another practice area, maybe they haven't gotten the formal training and they want to pick things up. What's like, where do you start? What are the main tools? What are the books you pick up? Obviously, feel free to promote your own stuff, but I'm sure you
Yeah.
also learn from other areas. So I'm curious, how would you answer that question, I guess?
Yeah. So I would answer it with my personal way is with what I call deep dives that I try to do like if I was just going to start out, I do the LinkedIn thing and just kind of casually pick up stuff, read it a little bit every day, follow contract people who are talking about it. The thing you have to remember though is the quality of the contract advice varies tremendously. I see people who post a lot about contracts who are using kind of strategies that aren't, I would call best practices or have different perspectives. So you have to be a little bit of buyer beware on where you're getting your advice because
Mhm.
everybody can be an expert on LinkedIn and it's hard to decide.
Yeah.
So I would find people, especially if you have a community of lawyers that you know, like on this platform, people who have done that work. And especially people who got trained by good people, whether that was, which typically I look to, what kind of law firms did you work at? Did you work in contracts in a law firm or some kind of commercial work? Did you work at a company that, takes contracting seriously? And that's their focus. So I particularly try to learn from people who have that kind of background. Those are the people I usually pick for my training programs because I know they've been through a lot of this rigor that I had to go through, and you see things when you have really good training, one-on-one mentor training, you learn things in a way that are hard to pick up casually.
Yeah.
So I think pick who you're learning from, and then I do what I call deep dives, where there's really two ways to do contracts well. One is, or two things you need to do what contracts well. One is the subject matter expertise, which is really understanding. Like if you're doing NDAs and you don't understand how trade law or trade secrets law works or trade secret laws work, you're not doing NDAs effectively. Like you really have to know the law behind it. I mean, you can still do NDAs. NDAs aren't super hard. But to really be great at NDAs, you have to understand how trade secret law works. And no one explained it to me till I was a fifth-year lawyer. And then somebody sat down and was like, okay, here's the law, here's the standard, here's what happens. And I kind of learned that way. So I'm a big believer, go deep on the subjects relating to the contracts that you're doing. If it's IP, if it's trade secret law, if it's whatever it is, just go really, really deep, read everything you can. And that will help you get that expertise, at least from the subject. And then spend time talking to and listening to people who are in the weeds on the problems. That's who I love to talk to. So insurance people, risk managers, litigators, all those folks who are in the weeds when things go wrong, they have such a better appreciation of what our contracts need to say and do than people who have just been taught by a manager and they say, okay, severability, here's what it should say. And so you mark up severability in your contracts because you learned what it should say. And then you're like, then the people who do litigation or other conflict work, they're like, why are you spending any time on like, no, focus on termination and focus on post-term survival provisions and the exhibits. Like they'll tell you where everything goes wrong. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest advice is start all with that. I love David Tolan's book. He's got a great website called Tech Contracts Academy, ton of excellent clauses. He and I actually worked in the same big law, like Morrison Foerster's the law firm, and we both worked out of the San Francisco office. I think he was left like 9 months before I started. So it's part of the reason we are so similar, like in our advice, is because we both had the same training from the same people.
Mhm.
Um, I love his stuff. I love Nedal Najafi. She's got some great stuff at Contract Nerds. Really, it's just getting familiar. And then if you're doing contracts with other people, try and just work with others, like volunteer to work with another lawyer you know who knows it well, and maybe do a couple drafts as a first draft for free for them. And that
Mhm.
way you can get some training.
Any books that you would recommend? Because I know, so David Tolan, I actually read his book when I was starting to make my transition to like partial commercial attorney, the tech contracts handbook, because I was in deep with tech contracts, and I loved that style of writing. It was super like to the point, pragmatic, short book, which I love because I can't read. Um, so, so yeah, I love that. Any other books that you think or others have recommended to you, or that you recommend to people who are wanting to level up, I guess?
Yeah, I think the other one is that is Ned Al-Najafi. She does has contract redlining etiquette, or
Okay.
something like that. This contract redline etiquette. And what it is, actually, I think I've got a copy of it behind me. But what I love about her book is she's very practical and really explains this kind of strange world of exchanging drafts and negotiating by redline, which is kind of the common practice these days. So I really appreciate how she explains to manage that process. So between those two, I mean, those are my two favorite. There's other books out there, but I like the challenges of some, a lot of them aren't super practical for day-to-day people, and the advice may be a little bit more academic. So I think those are probably my favorites from the contracting standpoint.
And any, you mentioned following the right people. Who's your like, here's the people I follow. Who's your curated list of contracting folks on?
Well, right now, because it's all about what I want to learn. So I'm not as focused on like general purpose contract people, and I'm much more on like AI contracting. So I have a whole bunch of people that I'm following. Like Kevin Keller is one of my main people. Actually, I have a show called AI Contracts Explained, and basically I invited everybody I admire on the show to be speakers. So if you go to my website and go to the AI Contracts Explained show, and there's a list of like 30, 25 to 30 speakers that I've had on the show, like follow all those people. I'm very picky about who I let be a speaker at anything I do because quality is everything for my brand and being able, and my audience. So everybody I have on the show is somebody I trusted to give good advice.
Awesome. And thank you. William just posted the link there. So it's great. And we'll share a recap with all these notes as well for everyone in the community. So where was I going? I had so AI contracting. Let's like go back to this. You had mentioned, I guess, at the top of the conversation, that you don't really play too much in the tools themselves. So like the AI drafting tools, you mentioned you're not the right person, I guess, to ask like what tools do you use or anything like
Uh,
that. Although I thought you might be, so maybe I'll have to have someone else on to talk more about that. But you said so your focus now is contracting for AI software is a lot different than contracting for SaaS software or like tech contracts in general. What are some of the things that you're seeing that people need? Like, we're all issue spotters, right?
yeah.
So I guess what are like the top three issue spotting things you're seeing when you get a contract that was probably like a Frankenstein contract from pre-AI, now being used for AI? How are you issue spotting that? What are you looking for? Where do the red lights go off?
Yeah, and I think the biggest issues, what I've learned from mainly from the show and all these experts I talk to all the time now, which is one is the unpredictable nature of the AI programming. That with SaaS and software, you have code and it creates this result, but with these AI products, you're unleashing this kind of probabilistic thing that could give different answers to different questions. It's updated on its own without anybody like going in and doing a version change or a new release of v.3, whatever. So I think that's a big one. The governance and compliance risks are, phenomenally more or whatever, a lot more, because of the nature of the products that it can do things that become less predictable. And so, as a compliance or a governance person, you need predictability. You want to make sure you contain your risks. And so, that's one of them. I also think the relationship between the vendor and the customer is so much more blurred than it was or is with SaaS and software, where the vendor provides a platform and you go in and enter your stuff and use the services. And it's pretty straightforward. There's a little bit of blur here and there, depending on whose content it is and what's done with it. But generally, it's, especially now after SaaS has been around for a while, we know. But with AI products, if the customer's not prompting right, it can throw off the product. If the vendor isn't properly retraining or does it in a way that the customer didn't expect, then suddenly the customer's kind of screwed and they don't know, they have a product that's all of a sudden going off the rails. So I think that relationship is a lot of it. And that's why this course, so I just launched today this AI contract or contract essentials course. It's a 2-hour free course sponsored by Spellbook. Everybody can have it for free. It's normally I charge $250 for each of these courses, the 2-hour ones, and they sponsored that. So it's a great way to just learn really issue spotting and figuring out like what are the things that go wrong. And when people talk about this issue or data in these contracts, it's a whole different kind of data relationship with your vendor than you have with SaaS and software. And to understand that and learn enough, I mean, it's each module is 10 to 15 minutes long. So it's not like you're going to learn everything, but at least you'll learn the issue spotting and some of the reasons why people freak out and are worried about different issues relating to these contracts.
That's great. And when is that course starting?
Well, it's on demand, ready
On
today.
demand. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a 2-hour course on demand. You just go either my website, how to contract, or I posted today on LinkedIn, and you can see that. And we've got some other bonuses coming out in the coming weeks relating to the course. So I encourage people either follow me on LinkedIn or get on the mailing list because we've got some things that we are trying to get out today as well, but they're going to come a little bit later that are related to the course and other additional benefits and bonuses.
Amazing. All right, Erica, I'm going to go to you, and this is perfect timing because I wanted to go to the AMA session, but take it away.
All right, thanks, Brian. Thanks so much for being here, Laura. I'm glad
Yeah,
to
happy
have
to.
you. So I have two questions. My first is, and forgive me if you said this at the outside because I joined a little bit late, but who is your primary audience? Are you mostly speaking to people who are trained as lawyers, or are you speaking to lay people?
I'm mostly lawyers. And my audience has been very consistent all 5 years of me doing
Okay.
this stuff. It's always been around 60 to 70% lawyers and
Hmm.
30% kind of professionals who are really have a wide range of contract skills. But most of them, I think whenever I've polled my audience, it's like 80% of the people that follow me have 6 years or more experience or buy my stuff have 6 years. I do have some more junior lawyers, but I find the level of, I'm talking, it's kind of like they call it inside baseball, where it's like you don't necessarily appreciate some of these things until you've been in the weeds. And once you're in the weeds, you're like, oh my God, this is what I need. So people who haven't yet been in the weeds of contracting, like law students, brand new law school grads, they don't, I mean, they're amused by my cartoons and funny things I do, like memes and stuff, but they don't necessarily appreciate it. But people who have been doing it a while, I think, recognize the limitations of their own knowledge, so they tend to be much more interested. I've heard a lot of lawyers say you reading you makes me know that I'm not crazy, because they already know a lot of the stuff that I say. Because what I say isn't like everybody knows it. Like everybody who's been doing contracts for 20 years knows the exact same thing. I'm just putting it in writing and delivering it in a friendly way that people can absorb.
Yeah, so you're articulating it in a way that helps it resonate with them so that they can truly learn it in a
Mhm.
different way. So my second question actually ties to what you were just saying, which is you were talking about law students not necessarily resonating as fully maybe with your content. I am a former law professor and just think that the legal education system is fundamentally broken in the United States and that we should be doing a way better job of training people how to actually practice. So I'd be
Mhm.
just curious to hear some of your thoughts about that, because even
Yeah.
even to take a contract drafting class is like a lot of people don't. A lot of people get through law school without doing that. You never see a contract in contracts.
Yeah,
Like, how
exactly.
crazy is that?
Yeah, and went in, so I do have a whole bunch of kind of renegade law professors around the country who have
Mhm.
used my book in their classes. In
Mm.
the early days in 22 and 23, I did a big push to try and get in the law schools, mostly as a, you know, like pro bono thing to try and help this next generation learn. And I met with an unbelievable amount of resistance from the law schools. They just when I talk to deans, they would say, we don't have anybody who knows this subject, i.e., commercial contracts, master service agreement, SaaS agreement. We have property lawyers and we have corporate lawyers who know how to do bylaws. Like that's it. And
Mhm.
then somebody said they couldn't use my book because the professors didn't understand the concepts I talked about. And
Uh-huh.
so I was just like, yeah. And then the one school I finally started negotiating with to like get my book and get all my courses and all my content, they wanted me to do it for 5,000 a year to give access to 1,000 people.
Mhm.
And I was like, I no, there's no way. That's going to cost me 20,000 a year in customer support. So, yeah, it's just they're not there. And so I kind of, while I would love to, and actually I do still do a lot. So like University of Miami Law School, very supportive of me, uses my book and all their stuff. They've got a transactional skills boot camp every year. There's a public CLE in Miami on September 5th. I'm speaking there. And then I'm participating in, they have a competition, regional competition for contract negotiations. I'm not going to be a judge because I figured that would be kind of weird to have me as a judge. So I'm just going to be
Mhm.
like moral support and hang out and be there. But yeah.
If, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the school that had like sneaker law
Yeah,
class,
they did.
which
They
was
did.
so cool, where they had like hands-on stuff to really dig into all the like just all the different aspects of sneaker law, of which there are
Exactly.
plenty. So anyway, they just seem like a more forward embracing law school.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I think I wish we could do more, but at the end of the day, like I just hope my goal is to be able to offer more of what I do for free to law students and get to that place. And that's actually a big part of this new course I'm offering, the free one for AI Contracts Explained. I've basically equalized all law students, not only in the US, but around the world, because this isn't restricted to US people or work emails. Like anybody in the world can take it. It was very important to me to have that. I didn't just want people with a work email, all that stuff. And it couldn't just be the US or Canada. I hear a lot from students, as bad as we think it is in the US, it's so much worse from what I can tell in other countries where they don't really even have an effort to try and teach this stuff. So I get a lot of international lawyers who say, like, you're the only one explaining these things to me. So that's why I'm so excited about this AI course, to be able to share that with people.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Erica. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I have a question. Is that
All
okay?
right. Yeah, let me spotlight you. Where'd you go, Jonathan? There we
Oh, hey,
go.
Jonathan, how are you? I
Hi,
recognize you.
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
It's a pleasure to see you here among the community. You have lots of fans here, and
Thank you.
you are among a very receptive audience. As I've watched your community grow, one of the things that strikes me, not just within your community, but within other communities like yours that are not just let's call it law substance related, but also law operations related, is trying to find the right balance between um, being inclusive and being friendly, and also making sure that the information that's being talked about is correct, is accurate, um, and that the people that are um, talking about it and that you let talk about it. And I don't mean like in your programs, because obviously you are doing that just fine, but just generally in the community type conversations, that they um, have the proper credentials and experience to get to have their voices magnified. What kind of challenges have you faced in that regard, and how have you navigated those challenges? I think that is that's not just the challenge that people are facing in this area. I think it's a big challenge in this area. It's a challenge that we are facing in the world generally with regards to what I would call the proliferation of non-truths. And
Yeah.
I'm really interested in your take because this is your day-to-day business.
Yeah, and it has been an issue all along. So there's one part of it's that basic respect that have a very hard line. And again, disagreements all day long, that's totally fine. I had somebody tell me that I was exaggerating in my response the other day, and I left a comment there. It's like I don't care if you criticize me, that's all fine, as long as you're generally fine. But on the substantive side, it's harder because so many people are still learning and they're on a journey, they're trying to figure it out. So they say, like, I'll say you should do A, and somebody will say, well, I always do B. And in my head, B, if it's 100% wrong, I will say, oh, I don't know that I agree with that approach, blah, blah, blah. If it's not 100% wrong, because often things aren't black and white with contracts, then I will just kind of add well, that's an interesting perspective you have. Thanks for sharing. So I think people who, especially those who read regularly, can kind of read between the lines. Like every other comment is like, totally, that's exactly right. And then suddenly I get to that's interesting, the code word of whatever. But then the other thing I actually do, and people don't see this, is I delete explicitly wrong information. If I see something, and I see it all the time, not all the time, I'd say like a couple times a week, somebody will post something, and especially if people are appear to be knowledgeable, and it's not a question of, it's kind of like fuzzy gray area, like this is just plain wrong. And I had I still remember one post. I had these two guys who were arguing about it, both wrong, and just saying all these crazy things that just weren't. And I was like, people learn from these posts. I cannot rightfully keep these comments here, so I deleted all the posts. And then I usually, in the past, I would reach out to the people and say, listen, I have responsibility to the people who read my posts, so I do delete information that I believe is not helpful to their process. Or the other thing I'll delete is self-promotion. There's a couple people who love posting, you know, promoting their own products, promoting their like all these legal tech companies, all the contract tech companies. They start adding all their stuff in, and I just delete those too. So it's a challenge, but I respect the honor and place I have, which is that a lot of people look to my posts for information. So I do regulate it that way, but to a certain extent, we're all grown-ups here, and I can't completely dictate the way people learn. So it's a little bit of a judgment call. But at the end of the day, it was a woman named Katie Lipp, who's a lawyer out of Virginia. Early on, she said, your post, your rules. Your post, your space. You owe it to your community. Even if your community is just the 10 people who read this post, you owe it to them to make this a safe space and make sure that you are comfortable with what's being discussed here. So I continue to this day to feel that and feel that sense of obligation to make sure I'm moderating it at least to that minimum degree.
That's a very good answer. Thanks for sharing.
Sure,
That
thank
was
you.
an expert level answer that I will have to I'll have to rewatch that and take notes because a lot of what I do is what you talked about, which is making sure that people feel like they're getting a lot of high value information, not a lot of noise, that they can trust what's being said in our community, and so.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing, and especially like I'm not an expert. You are an expert in the thing that your posts are about, and I am not
Yeah.
an expert in all the conversations that happen within Hey Council. So it makes the job difficult to be a moderator of things that I don't fully have a total grasp on. But anyways,
But I think it's also like as lawyers, that's our whole thing is we hear people tell us all day long what the law is, what this thing is. So, I take on some of that responsibility, but not all of it. It
mhm,
has to be the people reading have to have some sense of who they should trust, who they shouldn't. And that's where in the beginning when I was saying like look at the credentials behind the people, like I often will do that, especially if I don't know the area. I'll go check, okay, where did they work? What did they do? Is this somebody who just started doing contracts a week ago, which some people who appear on webinars all the time have almost no contracts experience, but they talk to everybody about all their contract experience. So, we can do our own vetting to a certain degree. You can't for sure with everything they say, but, I'm very, very careful who I listen to.
yeah, that makes sense. You have to be, especially these days.
Yeah.
Um, I want to pass, I guess, with the last, we're 3 minutes over, but let's do one or 2 minutes. You can tell us how we can help, what we should keep on the lookout from you, what's in the next kind of, let's just say, few months for how to contract. What should we be excited about? Any of those, pick or choose.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And as I said, today's big thing is this how to or AI contract essentials course that's free. So to the extent you can share that with people that helps me a lot because my business in the past has always been courses and doing paid things. And I'm trying to transition to be more of a high quality content media company. So that's my big plan is just do a lot more because it's hard to sell $250 courses. It's a challenging path, but what I'm finding is these sponsors are willing to pay for everybody to take these courses.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, this is a way I can serve my mission and still make money. So that's anything anybody can do to kind of promote that and talk about it and share it is so appreciated. And I think and then we're going to start up with events again. I do an annual Contracts Con conference where it's a CLE contract training. I say I have sophisticated lawyers, former big law partners, former GCs, and high level in-house wearing costumes and cosplay as a character, using hypos involving that character, but teaching very serious things. So it's a fun way. It's got an energy unlike anything. There's just something about dressing lawyers up in as Merlin and
I
Dr.
didn't,
Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
I didn't know I had no idea there was a costume element to it, but that's amazing. Where do you host Contract Con?
I've changed around a little bit. I did it in Miami the first year was the in-person one. Then I did 2 years at University of Nevada, Las Vegas on their campus. But I'm getting ready. The next one's going to be in April next year, and I'm partnering with a law firm to hold it on their offices. It's going to
Okay.
be a little bit smaller. I'm going to end up doing regional. I'm going to try and do 3 or 4 regional contracts cons a year to enable more people to kind of come keep them a little bit smaller so it doesn't get crazy for me, my one person company. And that like just have like usually there's about 120 to 150 people who come, but I'm gonna try and keep it to about 80 each one going forward. But yeah, like where else do you see partners in law firms dress up as these costumes. And the greatest thing is when they stay in character for the whole training. We had Lori Ehrlich, who used to be general counsel at Datadog, and now she's at Dioptra. And she was delivering as Mary Poppins about APIs. And the best thing is she did a British accent the entire thing, carrying around her purse and pulling out like big things out of it as she's training. And it was amazing. So somebody
Yeah.
asked her if she was actually British, and she was like, no. So
Well,
it's just so fun.
I think Comic-Con is in San Diego, right? That's
Yeah.
because I'm in
So,
San Diego, so you might want to use this as
oh,
one of
okay.
your regions. Maybe we can partner up on a Contracts Con down here.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of opening it up now, doing it this way. I mean, in theory, we could do more of it because I think there's a need for this, especially with the AI and everything now, like this in-person learning where you know, it's more than ever, we really need that. So I'm going to try and do a lot more of that as I kind of move to this next stage of trying to do more sponsored content instead of just charging end users.
Amazing. Well, I'll need to reach out to you and figure out who the good sponsors are because I need to figure out our sponsoring strategy
Well,
here.
I don't know. I don't know if I know. That's not my strongest suit. It's yeah, talk to Shai at In-House Connect. And Ari, he's good at Counsel. Those two are like the king of sponsors.
That's right. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on. This has been an awesome conversation and also just like good meeting you because we haven't met
Yeah.
before.
I'm so
Um,
glad to meet you, and I've heard many good things. I know you're filling in a need. I tried to do community before. I appreciate it's not easy. Lawyers are busy, and it's really hard to make time sometimes, even though we need the community. It's a challenge. So hats off for growing such a successful group and providing a resource everybody needs.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like it's just getting started, and you're right. The balance is we want to take as little time as possible to provide as much value as possible. So that's the kind of the interesting sauce that we're trying to create around here. But uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you, and I'm sure our paths will cross again. And I will share.
Mhm.
We can touch base after this, and I'll share resources to the group, and we'll drop more information about the course that you're doing. And
Perfect.
anytime you have something to share, you can always reach out to me, and we can.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Okay,
All right.
great. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and I recognize some names, so I'll see everybody on LinkedIn. And connect with me if you haven't yet. I'm an open connector, so I accept all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Thank
everybody.
you for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.